Hi, I'm Jennifer Sir, owner of The Sewing Room. Welcome to my Jobs in Fashion series. Today, we're talking about the job of custom dressmaker. And in this case, we're talking with Kiley Brokaw, who owns Spidora, a small business that specializes in creating custom size vintage inspired women's wear with an emphasis on early to mid 20th century fashion. Using vintage machines and techniques, creating these special one of a kind pieces is a passion for her and one she is happy to share with the world. I have been following Kiley now for quite some time on Instagram, and I've met her a few times in person. She does beautiful work, and I'm so excited to share this conversation with all of you about her job and what she does, because there's really a need for it out there. There's really a need for niche businesses in the sewing world. So this is one of them. And without further ado, here's Kiley. Hi, Kiley. Welcome to the sewing room.
Well, thank you for having me. It's great to see you.
It's great to see you too. I've been a super fan for a long time, so I'm super excited to learn more about your business and to share that business with my audience. So, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, about your background, really, and how you started Spidora of San Francisco?
So it was a long process in the making. My to give you a little bit about my background is no surprise. I live in San Francisco. I'm just turned 42 this year, and I have had a passion for sewing for many years. And in my previous career life, I was in the beauty industry. I did that for almost 20 years, hair. And over time, my business developed to where people were coming to me for kind of vintage themed services, uh, cuts, styling, all of that. And then every night I would go home and sew. And I started to find that's really where my passion super lied. And then people started to say they liked what I was wearing or what vintage shop did I get it at. And I was always excited to tell them that I'd made it myself. And slowly but surely, I started to get requests here and there to make a shirt or a skirt or something vintage inspired for people. And when the pandemic happened, I had lots of time to sew, and it just snowballed into a business. And now, this month, it's been 4 years since I've started my business, and it is my main source of income. I do it full time, and it's a huge passion project of mine. I love it.
That's amazing. I'm so happy to hear that.
And to clarify, I guess I should point this out. I do a lot of different things, but my main specialty is kind of early to mid 20th century vintage inspired clothing, making it custom to people's bodies so all bodies can wear vintage styles, and making it as close to vintage as possible on the machines, the techniques, sometimes the textiles, all of the above. So it's something as I've been wearing vintage for 30 years, so it's something as close to vintage as I can create.
That's amazing.
It's a niche, but it keeps me busy.
How do you refer to yourself? Are you a dressmaker, a seamstress,
Usually when asked, I usually say dressmaker.
maker?
I think dressmaker, I think it encapsulates, even though I do a variety of things, I would say that's definitely the main focus of my business.
Is your primary customer female or female
I would
presenting?
I would say 90%. Yeah, I do have some menswear clients, but mainly women's wear. It's kind of where my passion is.
What services do you offer?
Uh, I have a variety of services that I do because I do so full time. So I like to mix it up. I would say one of the most basic things I offer is um, any type of vintage clothing repair. I have some vintage sellers that I work with on a regular basis who bring a lot of inventory to me to properly fix it. That's always done with the angle of preserving and keeping it as original as possible. And then I go into custom. And that's where someone usually comes to me with a design idea, something they saw in a movie. Maybe they have an old pattern. And then I make it custom to them with any little tweaks that they want. And that's a whole process. And then that has different layers of process. Sometimes I do that for someone around the world, and there's a base level of customization I can do, pretty simplified. And then people in the Bay Area or who are able to get to me, then I do a next level above that where maybe the projects are bigger and will require multiple fittings and patterning. And it's kind of goes up from there.
Awesome. Uh, do people come to you, or do you work? Yeah, you just kind of answered that question already.
Yeah, I send things all around the world. Sometimes people come to me. I'm right downtown. I've gone to people. I've had clients where they have massive vintage collections and they want me to come and go through it to do any alterations on them and prep all that and then bring it back to my workspace. You name it. If it's vintage related, uh, probably have done it or offer some level of it.
That's a fantastic service. There's such a need out there for that. Uh,
There is. I've had some people be like, "Oh, that's kinda niche," and vintage is a huge business. I got my first piece of vintage when I was 13, and so it's almost 30 years, and, there is no shortage of people needing work done, whether it's altering it, which I'm always careful to do in a way that will keep the garment as original as possible, um, you repairs. I could do just repairs, but I love to do some other stuff too. But that
yeah.
would keep me plenty busy.
I've been getting requests for vintage repairs and I've been sending them to you. So I hope they've
Oh, I
actually,
appreciate that, I appreciate it.
what kind of training have you had?
Well, I am self-taught. I, didn't go to, like, university or school program, but when it came to any type of education, there's no other word for it, I'm just totally a huge nerd about sewing. I mean, it's pretty much taken over my life. So, what you can't see is piles of books around me and a little bit of chaos related to sewing, and, so any type of in-person class, a lot of online, I love collecting any books. That's a weakness of mine. Any books with sewing education in it, I always find a way to justify that I need another one. And I especially love the vintage books. I have some beautiful 30s, 40s uh, instructional books that were made for people in the industry, which are really big favorites of mine. Not cheap, but when you find them, they're incredible. And everything from pattern grading to grading size, flat pattern alterations, you name it.
That's great. Um, how do clients find you and how do you find clients?
Well, at first, when I started my business, it was early on in the pandemic. So it was strictly online. People would find me on social media. I used Instagram a lot at the time. I have a pretty bare bones website, but sometimes through there. And then in the last year or two, I'm really thankful. A lot of word of mouth. I've had people come and tell me that so and so sent me, or this person loved. I saw them wearing one of your pieces. I started handing out cards, doing more focused in person, especially here in the Bay Area. So it's really been word of mouth a lot, and then social media for sure.
Are you going to the vintage fashion fair tonight?
I might. I would like to go. I'm on the fence. I think it's amazing, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it this weekend. It's a busy weekend,
Yes, I totally
but I
understand.
do recommend everyone go. It's
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah,
I
let's
do
recommend
attend
everybody go.
I do attend a lot of the vintage events and live music and all of that, which is also where I meet potential clients.
Yeah,
Even
that's
in
a good point.
something happened recently that was really funny. I live on the ninth floor of my building,
Mhm.
and I was busy working on something. I was patterning something, and I didn't even think about it. But I ran down to get a package that was delivered, and I had a tape measure around my neck,
Mhm.
and nobody said anything at the moment, but the following week, several times I'd be in an elevator or down in the lobby, somebody would come up to me and they say, "Do you sew?" And that one trip down to the lobby with a tape measure on my neck, that's something that I would recommend. Just wear a tape measure around your neck and go everywhere because people are so hungry for people who are good at sewing.
It's true. They really are. They really.
Clients will come and find you. If you care about it and you're good at it, people will come in. They will hunt you down.
When you do pattern making for your clients, Do you use vintage patterns? Do you make patterns from scratch? How do you go about doing that?
I do all of the above. So I do have a large collection of vintage patterns. I would say that it's a big love of mine. I love collecting. And in the beginning of my business, I did focus a lot on using those. So usually my customization would be grading a pattern to someone's size.
Mhm.
And it would start as a base vintage pattern. And I still do that occasionally. I have clients where they're like, this pattern is from 1939. I want this exact pattern. And that's great. I love to do that. But then I also, over time, as I got more clients and I got more comfortable sewing for the public, people started to send me pictures like, I love this Edith Head costume from a movie. And it's like, well, that ain't no Butterick pattern. So you're gonna have to pattern that. So I didn't want to turn those kind of things away. And I love patterning. So it started to get to where I would say mostly today I do mostly patterning, usually flat patterning, and then sometimes with certain looks, not a lot, but I will drape a pattern occasionally.
Awesome. What does it look like to work with you? Like how does it work?
Well, the biggest way, so usually someone will contact me through the contact page on my website, spidorasanfrancisco.com. And reach out and usually give me an idea of what they're interested in. Oftentimes, it may be something that I've made a few times, or they have a whole new idea. And if it's in my wheelhouse, something that I think would be a good project, something that would be right for me and my business, then usually move on to the next step, which is we start to discuss maybe the textile they want to use. If they're in the Bay Area, I'll usually have them meet me at one of the local fabric stores if we're not using a vintage textile. Um, and then I will need a series of measurements. And depending on the project, is whether or not I need to see them in person or it's something I could do and send through the mail.
Mhm.
And then let them know price cost, and the rest is history. And then it's just moving on into the steps. Do my best at giving a time estimate. That's hard because I would love to be able to tell somebody, oh, the 20th of next month, I'm going to start your project. But I don't have a business where I have like 10 designs and I know this design takes me 8 hours, this design takes me 30 hours. So I have some projects where I may think, it's a lot of guessing work as far as the hours involved. So I am able to usually give a rough estimate, or if someone has a hard deadline, whether or not that's something that I would be able to do.
Right, like the preservation ball or
Which I
Gatsby
get I
Hammer.
get really hard deadlines like that. I don't do a ton of wedding, it's not my specialty. I think they should go to a bridal seamstress, but I do get little wedding jobs or
Mhm.
related altering wedding dresses, vintage, wedding clothes, and, those are definitely hard deadlines, and I always meet them. That's something really important to me. Even if it means you have to stay up really late.
Yeah. Yeah, for a wedding, you
It has
definitely
to get
hard
done.
hard
But then
deadline, like, that date's probably not changing unless it was 2020 and then it changed
then
10
it
times,
changed,
but
then it changed. So, yeah, so I do a little bit of that, but, uh, and sometimes people will have things for trips. Recently, I had a few different people that were going on trips, things like that. So
are you doing anything for people who are going to Egypt in September?
I'm not. That sounds amazing, though. Is it the cruise down the Nile? Is that?
Mhm.
Oh, I would love to do a 30s, like amazing. The 30s are a sweet spot for me. Long, kind of like slinky 30s clothing is one of my favorite things. So
Yeah, I also have some coordinating silk charmeuse that goes with that red velvet.
uh,
Just
I'm already I'm already getting ideas.
awesome. Do you have an ideal client?
An ideal client. Um, my clients are such a range. I would say that somebody who loves to have fun with clothing. I don't take myself serious. I mean, I take my work serious, but clothing is a fun way to just decorate yourself. And so someone who loves to have fun with clothing is really inspired by 20s through 50s. Those are kind of the eras I like to work on the most. Um, and also somebody who understands that custom clothing is a process. It's not a quick thing. It's not a cheap thing. It takes a lot of work to do. And um, I would say that's kind of like an ideal client. But other than that, my clients are completely, totally different from one to another,
All over the board. Yeah.
all over the board, which I love. I love. Yeah, I have a really good, diverse group of clients.
So I do these interviews on YouTube both to promote people that I know who are doing work in the fashion industry, but also um, for students who who don't know what kind of jobs are out there. So the series is called Jobs in Fashion, and with that in mind, what
Mhm.
kind of advice would you give someone just starting out who wants to do custom clothing for people?
Well, so this was something that I have a lot of advice on this. I'll keep it concise, but this is something that I definitely had to kind of learn my own way. There was no, what I do is pretty specific, and there's a lot of people who, there are other people out there who do it, but I didn't really have a simple rule book or a guidebook on all the steps. I've really had to learn bit by bit, and nothing would make me happier than being able to share my process with people, so maybe they don't have to make some of the mistakes I've made or tough learning lessons. So the first thing I would say is, uh, be okay starting small. I'm still a really small business, but this is my main income source. It's what I love to do. And I'm going on 4 years. And again, I still just singularly me. Um, and I wish I could kind of tell myself to enjoy that process, slow down a bit. And um, oh my God, there's just so many things I can think. Find out too, do you have a passion sewing for people? I think that's a big thing. Make sure that once you get into this industry, my whole thing solely is making clothing for people. That's my focus. So I would definitely say, um, find out, is that something that you enjoy to do? Not everyone enjoys it. Some people think they will enjoy it and they find out they don't. I found out very quickly that I love making things for people and I love seeing people wear things I've made. I still find it like endlessly exciting that people are out having a fabulous night and it's something I created on an old sewing machine. Like, so my advice would be, find out, do you really have uh do you get joy from doing that? And um I mean, there's so many. I I hate to be kind of blank about it, but it's like I would just, that'd be my first thing. Find out. I would say I have a lot of passion for what I do with my business, and
Mm, And you really, really dialed it in with your niche as well, I think.
I
That
did.
seems
And
really smart to me.
thank you. I appreciate that. I worried a little bit at first, just because I think at first you kind of want to be open to everything. But I also feel like there's so many different things out there that it's kind of nice to agree, dial it into your niche, and the right people will find you.
Mhm.
And like I said, my business is small, it's just me, so it keeps me plenty busy. Um, also, a big piece of advice, I think a lot of creatives go through this. When the time comes and you can really deliver that product, charge your worth, be comfortable charging for your time. I've heard this story a million times. I went through it myself, and maybe it's something people just have to go through. I don't know, but that's another big piece of advice. And yeah, that's kind of my biggest things with. I've been so focused in on what I'm doing, it's kind of hard to put that into words, but I would say the biggest thing is find out, do you have passion for it?
Yeah, I did wedding gowns for a while, and in the beginning, I was very passionate about it. I loved it. But after I had my daughter, it was too much hand holding. I just couldn't do it anymore. And I found that I really enjoyed teaching people how to sew and to make things instead of making things for other people. So I think that's terrific advice.
Well, I think that's awesome. You kind of find what element in that do you love.
Yeah.
Um, and that's, I think you definitely need to enjoy what you're doing. I know for this, I immensely enjoy what I do, And because not every, I have a lot of fun with what I do, but not every day is, some days are stressful. Some days you're working extra hours. Um, but stay focused and be open to learning any new things, and um, definitely valuing your time and charging your worth. I say are the biggest learning lesson.
And then as far as your work life, what's your weekly work schedule? How does that look for you?
So I usually work, my weekly schedule is usually around Tuesday through Saturday. I work into the weekend a little bit because on occasion when people do come to see me, I like to be able to offer a weekend day.
Mhm.
Um, Usually there'll be a day or two where I may be patterning. There may be an appointment or two where I'm meeting someone at a fabric store. Uh, every day I'm answering some type of message, whether it's just a DM or an email, checking in with clients, updating. I have all of my commission lists and all of that done as spreadsheets. That was something I started out with a pen and paper that was really sloppy 4 years ago. And somebody was like, "You don't use spreadsheets." So I've gotten into spreadsheets. And um, so there's a mix of that. And then there's, of course, sewing. So most of the time I'm at the sewing machine. But I would say that, when you have a small business like myself, I'm doing everything from, again, checking messages to shipping things, meeting people, patterning, you name it. So it's a variety. I'm never doing just one thing.
And do you have any plans for growth?
I think the next step that I have been thinking about the last year would be, so I work out of my home,
Mhm.
and there's a lot of things about that I enjoy. But I think the next step that would be good, as the level of custom that I've been doing has grown exponentially. It's become one of those things where I want to have a separate workspace for meeting people, and I want something that's a little easier to have open to the public.
Mhm.
Um, I have been pretty happy working from home, to be honest. I like that it's all my stuff is right there. Sometimes I get really creative at night. Sometimes in the evening, I think I really don't want to go across town to a workspace. So I love that option. But I think that would be my next, to have just a little separate workspace. I think the time is coming close where that would be a good option. As far as future employees or anything like that, I really, for now, I'm a fan of keeping my business really small. Um, I don't have any plans on that. My main focus with what I do is I want to make beautiful, special pieces for people to have a long time and be known for making beautiful things. That's kind of my main focus. I don't have any fantasies about having a brand everywhere and, you know, all of that. That's great for people who do. For me personally, I'm super into the craft of making things. So I kind of just like to be at the machine. And as long as I can pay my bills and get to make beautiful things, I'm happy. So,
Well, I think that's what makes it even more special too, is that you're there, you're doing it, you're the one behind the sewing machine.
yeah, that's
And
what I love.
yeah, so I mean, if you're looking for to the future and growing it all, you could think about things, just different ways you can get support outside of the things that you love. Maybe
Mhm.
handing off the things that you don't love, you
Oh,
know.
totally, totally. That's another thing I've definitely learned. It's okay to say no to projects.
True.
I think at first too, I really felt a strong amount of wanting to be um, available to everything, and also feeling like, "I don't want to tell someone no," or but it's best, stick to what is the right project for you and what is going to give it's okay to say no, and it's okay for clients to say no to you if they're like, that doesn't work for me, or that I can't afford that right now. That's all businesses deal with that. I struggled with that in the beginning too. I definitely had a hard time saying no. So I have learned that lesson. Stick with things that you know, and the right projects for your business.
That's great. That's great. Let's see if I have any other questions. I think Oh, what's the best way for people to connect with you?
So the best way is usually if someone's reaching out for a commission is to go to my website. It's pretty bare bones website, but it has a little portfolio on there. You can go, there's a contact page that will email me directly. And then it doesn't get buried on social media. I do have an Instagram account where I'm on a lot. I share a lot of my work on there. But sometimes the DMs in there can get a little messy. So if someone's reaching out for work or anything like that, I always recommend through my website the contact page. I don't have a TikTok. I had a TikTok for a while. Not much happened with it, and so I kind of got rid of it. So I just am on Instagram.
Awesome. And
Okay.
actually, your website, while you say it's bare bones, it's absolutely adorable. And you have
Oh,
like a great little measuring area. I love
oh,
talking
thank
where you
you.
talk about measuring because I think that's so vital. So I think,
I tried to make something really simple for people at home. You know, in person, there's probably 30 more measurements I want to take, but I tried to make something that's like, if these are the measurements I can make something from, it's a project I can probably do remotely.
yeah.
Uh, so yeah, so thank you. I'm not a computer whiz, you know, I'm usually on an old machine. So thank you for saying that because I'm always like I was getting these emails when I first made my website. And I found out it's just a sales thing where they're like, let us make your website better.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh my God, does it look that bad? And then finally
Oh,
somebody told me, they're like, no, 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 all websites get that. It's people selling their services like, oh, okay.
no, your website looks great.
Thanks. I would eventually the future, I would say one thing about growing the future, I would love to be able to have a part of my business where custom options are a little more streamlined. Some of the
Mhm.
things that I have made in the past, some designs that I've made numbers of, I would really like to be able to have on the site and have people order that in their custom sizing. So that's the next thing I'm working on. It's been taking a long time, but patterning some ideas that people can see, know the cost of, and then order it in their measurements.
That's
That's
fantastic.
kind of the next thing. So I guess in growing in that way, I definitely want to make it more accessible because I
Yeah.
have had people reach out and kind of feel there's a mystery to how my business operates,
Mhm.
and they want to know, well, what does this cost, and how do I get something made? So I'd like to streamline that a little bit, but just knock on wood, I've been so busy.
Yeah, that's great. But it's also good to
But
have like a buy it now option too, where someone can just press the button and it shows up in 6 weeks or whatever.
exactly. That's something I've wanted to do since the beginning.
Mhm.
And I've just, again, knock on wood, I've been pretty busy where I think, well, I'm already doing this. But ultimately, I think I would love that too for myself, for streamlining a few things.
Mhm.
I think that would be a wise business choice because one thing I will say with custom, I love doing it. Um, Especially when it's something that's a little different and throughout that you kind of look at it and say, "Oh, wow, I made that. That's, I haven't made a million of these. I love that it's a little bit different." On the same way, I guess like you could say hand holding, there is so much back and forth with that that it can be sometimes where it's like, I love all that too, and I love my clients, but then there's those times where it's like, I kind of just want to sit at the sewing machine and know, make two of these in this size. There are those days I want to do that.
Yeah. That's why I make doll clothes. Is so that
Oh
I
my
can
What's so fun, I know I made this little 30s dress,
I
which is
love that little
so
30s
fun.
dress.
It's a half scale, but I did that because it was just so fun to kinda also just sit there and have everything I need be right there.
And it's so small too.
Oh, so tiny. I love it. So, yeah, those are really fun. Do you make them for, like, on the vintage, like, the little mannequin sewing dolls?
No, I just make American Girl doll clothes.
Oh, I've seen that.
And
Cute.
then
Those are
there's
a good size.
so I have a pattern company as for tween girls is basically what it is because that's my main clientele during where or at least that's what it was when I first started and then I made all of those patterns in the 18-inch doll size so that
Oh
they
my
could make matching outfits for their dolls
I love
and then I went a little bit further and did more patterns for the dolls than I did for the adults, or not for the adults, but for the kids because they were just easier to create. And so I sort of explored that as a business for a while, and then I stopped completely, but I had all these scraps of fabric and I wasn't sure what to do with them. So there's a website where I buy the patterns and I just sew them up, and then we're allowed to sell whatever we make. So I just,
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah, yeah, it's fun. You come across a small piece of fabric that you're like, oh, the scale is right and it's the right
Oh,
size.
totally that. Yeah,
Yeah.
that is this little one is 30s fabric, and it wasn't very much. It was like a weird shape. It was only like this much of like a straight grain in it, and I was like, I could make a little something out of that. Well, I totally think the sewing room is awesome, and I wish, speaking of tweens, that I had something like that to
Mhm.
go to when I was that age. Because I got my first sewing machine at 12, and I had no one to show me how to use it. And
Oh,
I carried that thing around for years, never using it. I honestly thought that you had to put the bobbin thread up through the hole yourself. Like, I had no one I was as helpless as could be, and now I refurbish machines, but, like, that's how you can really start at the bottom.
yeah.
So I would have loved a place like the sewing room. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, we love helping the kids, and we love helping everybody learn how to sew and to get the
Totally.
joy out of it that I get out of it. I love it's my still my favorite thing to do. I do it in all my spare time, and yeah. Yeah. Well, Kylie, thank you so much for being here today.
It was
And
so good to see
I'll
you.
link I'll link all your contact information down in the show notes. And yeah, so that's that's it.
It was so good to see you.
Good to see you too.
For
And
having me on.
that was a great conversation with Kylie. She told us a lot about the job of dressmaker. She's found her niche in the vintage world, focusing on women's wear inspired by the early 20th century fashion. She's a self taught dressmaker and utilizes sewing, flat pattern making, and draping in her custom work. She is an avid reader, however, and collector of vintage sewing and dressmaking manuals. This is what really sets her apart because she's spent all that time reading and learning about all these skills that she didn't have before. And that's how people used to learn back in the era those books were written. They looked in manuals and they learned how to do it. Um, a couple of other things. She has a few simple offers. She offers vintage mending, custom dressmaking, and custom size special pieces that she's done before. The advice that she has for just starting out, if you're wanting to have your own dressmaking business, would be to start small. And I agree with her on this. Starting small is really important. You've really got to find out if you have a passion for making clothes for other people. That's very important, because if you find that you don't really want to make clothes for other people, then you've got this business already. It's not going to work out. Charge your worth. Absolutely. Once you're starting to establish yourself as a business person, um, sewing takes a lot of time and you really have to get paid for the work that you do. So charge your worth. That's a really great advice. And it's okay to say no to projects. There are going to be projects that you really don't want to do, and that's okay, especially if you're starting small. You may you may start doing projects that you initially um, thought were fine, and then you realize, oh, I don't like hemming pants, or oh, I don't want to do this anymore. And it's okay. That's totally okay. So I'm so happy to have spoken with Kylie today, and I hope you have enjoyed our interview. If you're interested in learning more about Kylie and her business, you can go to her Instagram. I believe it's Spidora of San Francisco, and I'll link it down in the show notes, as well as her website information. And if you're interested in learning more about sewing and the fashion world, I would encourage you to check out our fashion studies page on my website, which is thesewingroomalameda.com/fashion-studies, all lowercase. If you like this video, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe. It really helps us out. Thanks.